My name is Erin Sutherland, and I am an assistant professor of cultural studies at the University of Alberta. I am an independent curator as well, and I work as a core and founding member of a Saskatchewan Contemporary Art Collective out of Edmonton. So I have been curating for about 5 or 6 years, I think. I started working as a curator of performance art, Indigenous performance art mostly, and I've kind of reached out and pushed myself to do other forms of curating as well, and so I've curated a few gallery shows, mostly co-curated, and my collective is the Saskatchewan Contemporary Art Collective out of Edmonton, and we support Indigenous contemporary art in Edmonton. So I was really inspired by a quote in Leanne Simpson's Leaks, which is a poem and a music video, I guess, which is Her Body Will Remember. And I've been really struck by or thought a lot about the reasons why or how Indigenous women come to know themselves through processes of making, as well as just showing that process of making. Instead of showing final products, instead I'd like to show that process because it's so important, and we come together often over at a kitchen table or at a coffee shop while we're beading or making in some way or another. And so I wanted to kind of capture that. So I've been working, I've worked before with Tiffany Shaw Collins, and she's really interested in the materiality of work. She's an architect as well. And she thinks through kind of almost disrupting patterns. It's all styled from a pattern of her grandmother's, which was used for beading, mostly beading for moccasins. And so all of her work is taking that pattern and engaging in it and working through it using technology. And so she uses laser printers and a bunch of other technology that is really interesting. Like wood cutters, laser cutters, 3D printers, to kind of disrupt that material and disrupt that pattern. And then she also thinks about how we respond to that and how we come to know ourselves through that. So it's kind of interesting to see how visitors will interact with her work. And then with Thema Igaris, I'm really interested in how Thema uses novel materials to explore traditional styles. So things like this hide scraper, which is basically the shin bone of an animal filed down in order to create a tool that you can use to tan a hide or scrape a hide so that you can tan it. And so she's taken the shin bone tool and then replicated it in a bunch of different materials, including glow-in-the-dark plastic and bronze and a bunch of different other materials. So it's kind of cool to see the repetition of the traditional work, but then also see the different types of materials that she's using. And then the other work that she has in this show is the Tahltan singing machine. And Thema is Tahltan, from the Tahltan Nation. And she's created basically a karaoke machine in the gallery to sing a Tahltan song. And that's kind of interesting, thinking about the way that the Tahltan people kind of see themselves in or through that song, and how you can partake in it. And so Thema is very involved in language, or supporting Tahltan language revitalization, not only revitalization, but just supporting the language. And so she's really interested in bringing the language into public space. And so that's another way that the karaoke machine works as well. And then finally in the courtyard, I worked worked with Marielle Bélanger, and so the way that I got to know Marielle was actually Tanya Willard, who had the show before Marielle. She recommended Marielle's work because she thought that it really fell in line with what I wanted to explore. And I'm so glad that she introduced me, because Marielle's Moon Lodge is phenomenal. And we were just talking actually about it. Just now we were sitting outside in it. And she was talking about how the process of learning how to make this Moon Lodge showed her a lot about what she needed. She needed a place to think. She needed a place to be with herself, which is very much what the Moon Lodge traditionally would be, is a space for women to come together at the beginning of the menstrual cycle. And Marielle didn't have that as a child when she started her menstrual cycle, and so she needed to learn how to make that for herself. And then through that process of making, she learned a lot about actually what she needed and who she is. So what I see that ties all the works together is that each artist explores how identity, technology, and material are linked together. And the way that using materials and technology can actually be a way to inform identity. We can learn about one another, we can learn about ourselves through this process of working with our hands, working with technology, computers, karaoke machines, and that's, I think, the general theme of the show. Well, I hope they're introduced to or reintroduced to 3 incredible women who are all amazing artists and who have worked really hard to bring the show to Kelowna. I hope they see the variability in Indigenous art, that there's so many different kinds of styles present in Indigenous contemporary art and Indigenous art just in general. And I just hope that they I hope they find things that I didn't even know that I was putting in the show, and that they're able to find meaning for themselves in the pieces as well.